At first glance, it's just another ordinary surgical procedure. But this is a perfectly healthy man about to have his hand amputated. A convicted cattle thief, he's the first person to be punished under Islamic or Sharia law, now sweeping across the Muslim north of Nigeria. These images, recorded by Sharia activists, keen to display their civilized method of punishment.
We are telling people that, look, this is what God said in his law, and whoever dares to commit offenses against God and against humanity will receive that punishment.
Later in recovery, the hapless thief begins a second sentence, learning how to cope with a lifelong disfigurement. But there's much more at stake than just medieval forms of punishment. Sharia now threatens to dismember a nation divided between Muslim North and largely Christian South. It's not a story Nigerian authorities want told. They fear the growing popularity of this man, the governor of Zamfara state, who's risen from obscurity to lead this Islamic revival. 7 other Muslim states have now heeded his call. He says he won't stop until all Nigeria is under Sharia rule. Do you think Nigeria should become a Sharia nation?
That is my ambition, and that is the ambition of every Muslim in this country.
They gather in St Andrew's Anglican Church, Kaduna, to count their blessings. Many are Christian refugees from the newly declared Sharia states. All Nigerians are deeply spiritual, be they Christian or Muslim. Released last year from the shackles of 15 years of military dictatorship, they're embracing their separate faiths with a renewed vigour.
Let us pray also for our members, the members of this diocese, that the fear of the God will be in our mind.
They pray for paradise, but twice this year have found themselves in the midst of a living hell that left more than 1,000 people dead as Christian and Muslim butchered their fellow man in the name of God. Sharia had swept across the Muslim North unopposed until it collided with Kaduna's sizable Christian minority, who feared persecution under Islamic law. Islamic fundamentalists quickly discovered that one man's jihad is another's crusade.
It is just like when you fight me, you push me to the well, to the wall. What next? I have to retaliate. That is how the Christians did.
This is what much of Kaduna looks like today, after the rioting that claimed more than 1,000 lives. But it's not as simple as just a dispute between Christian and Muslim. There are a whole range of issues here that threaten to fragment Nigerian society. There's an ongoing conflict between the country's 3 major tribal groups, a growing gap between rich and poor, and a continuing struggle for power between those who support this nation's fledgling democracy and those who prefer the bad old days of military rule. Striding into the midst of this chaos, Nigeria's new political messiah, Olusegun Obasanjo, who was elected president last year after 15 years of military dictatorship. He's a leader who has defied the odds, an army general who retired, turned Democrat and won the polls. Also a fundamentalist Christian who broke the political and military monopoly of the Muslim North. He claims Muslim political opponents are brandishing Sharia as a weapon to bring about his downfall. Back amid the ruins of Kaduna, the graffiti provides a clear indication of who prevailed here in Reverend Washim's parish. But it's a hollow victory. Before the rioting, this was a mixed community of Christians and Muslims. And like most Nigerians, they shared a bond of abject poverty, seeing none of the country's vast oil wealth that lined the pockets of the military dictatorship.
There's no money, we repaired it.
The Reverend says the Sharia riots were about politics, not religion. He claims that the Islamic activists who confronted local Christians were outsiders, hired by supporters of the old dictatorship, who are now cynically and dangerously playing the religion card in a bid to destabilise President Obasanjo.
The truth is that the Sharia law that they are trying to is not a religious as such completely, but it's a political.
What do you mean?
What I mean is that if you can hear, there are a lot of plans to get rid of the present head of state, and this is a man that is sent by the Lord to lead this country because we have been in bondage. He is a sergeant and the rest under him.
Welcome. Fine. President Obasanjo's army keeps an uneasy truce in Kaduna. The once feared foot soldiers of the former dictatorship transformed into unlikely saviours.
But they are to make sure that there is peace among us.
Yeah. And as you were saying earlier, you feel if the army moves out of here, things will get
worse. That is why they are here.
The Obasanjo government is reluctant to reimpose this sort of authority over the Sharia states to the north, fearful that it may trigger civil war. There are still strong memories of the last major internal conflict in the 1960s, the Biafran War, an inter-ethnic Armageddon that left 1 million people dead. Today, the stakes are high, and all Nigeria is watching Kaduna.
If there is peace in Kaduna, there is peace in Nigeria. If there's no peace in Kaduna, there will be no peace in Nigeria. That is why, because here is a liberal state where everybody could come.
The man who leads this so-called liberal state lives in a compound now defended by tanks. Kaduna's state governor is charged with holding the federal government's secular line. Ironically, he's a devout Muslim who refuses to heed the call to implement Sharia. But Al-Haji Ahmed Mohammed Makafi offers no real solution.
I am accused by both Muslims and Christians because I want to be fair to both sides. I cannot speak for either, irrespective of my faith. I was voted into office by both Christian Muslims and even people who don't believe in either of these religions. And once you are trying to be fair and just, of course, you find dissatisfaction from both sides from time to time.
Just a couple of hours north lies the heartland of the Islamic revival. Zamfara, home of farming and Sharia, proclaims the state boundary marker. In contrast to his Kaduna colleague, Zamfara's governor, Al-Haji Sani Ahmed, has the aura of a political winner. He's become a powerful new political player, loved in the Muslim north, loathed in the Christian south. Dubbed the Butcher of Zamfara by the Christian-dominated press, accused by the tabloids of profiting from the very corruption he's vowed to eradicate by lining his pockets during an earlier career as a government finance official. Sani Ahmed takes it all in his stride, but then he can afford to.
You were the first governor to introduce Sharia law.
Yes.
Others have followed.
Yes.
In other states, there has been huge loss of life as a result of the law change or people wanting to change the law. Has it all been worth it? I mean, lots of people have lost their lives.
I don't think it is the reason why there was that crisis, particularly in Kaduna. Sharia was never the reason. You see, before now, there was crisis in Dangon Katab.